manifested by your effulgence. Purport. Without illumination, nothing can be seen, especially in this material world. The illumination in this world emanates from the effulgence of Sudarshana, the original vision of the Supreme Personality of God. The illuminating principles of the sun, the moon, and fire emanate from Sudarshana. Similarly, illumination by knowledge also comes from Sudarshan because with the illumination of Sudarshana, one can distinguish one thing from another, the superior from the inferior. Generally, people accept a powerful yogi like Durvasa Muni as wonderfully superior. But if such a person is chased by the Sudarshan Chakra, we can see his real identity and understand how inferior he is because of his dealings with devotees. So, various speakers before in the past few days have summarized this pastime and also has summarized in the past few days. So I'm not going to summarize the pastime again fully. So share some thoughts for the pleasure of Sri Shweta Malidhar, Sri Gaura Chandra, and Sri Prabhupada and all the assembled devotees. And before attempting to speak, I'd like to beg the blessings of Adipurush Prabhu, Arjuna Prabhu, and all the devotees so that I can say something for the pleasure of their lordships, and also I can at least imbibe even a fraction of what I am attempting to speak. These topics are highly reverential and also beyond my ability to grasp. So I'm just going to share whatever little I've heard from different devotees so far and what I've studied. So begging you all of your blessings. Hare Krishna. So we all have been following this pastime for a while now. So here, especially in this particular verse, we see the glories of Sudarshan. And who's praying here? Ambarish Maharaj is praying to Sudarshan. For what? To save Durvasa Muni. So Sudarshan, the word, the past, some of the speakers have mentioned how the word Sudarshan means something which actually shows the reality. So that's what Srila Prabhupada also mentioning in this purport towards the end, that someone may see Ambarish Maharaj as a king, as a worldly person who is involved with the wealth, kingdom, etc., and can see Durvasa Muni as a renunciant, and hence might naturally consider Durvasa Muni as a highly advanced person spiritually because of the Varna difference, ashram differences, and the Varna differences. However, here Sudarshan is showing the real vision. Who is actually who is being shown here by Sudarshan Chakra. That's what Srila Prabhupada says. When someone like Sudarshan chases Durvasa Muni, we can clearly see who's really spiritually advanced. And as most of us are following this pastime from a long time, so we know that, as Chaitanya Charan Prabhu also explained, Durvasa Muni, what did he do? We have the background of his behavior. And in spite of facing those circumstances by Ambarish Maharaj, even though he faced an unwarranted fury of Durvasa Muni, still now when there is a chance to save him, he is praying for his own welfare, for Durvasa Muni's welfare. So this Sudarshan shows who's who in the sense, who's a real Vaishnava. That is also being shown by Sudarshan, because many, like I might consider that, oh, I'm a devotee because I put on a certain kind of tilak on my forehead. I have taken initiation and I try to chant. I'm in a certain ashram, and so many ways I may consider myself as like a devotee. But Sudarshan here is showing what is the quality of a devotee, who can be considered as a real Vaishnava. So here we can see that Ambarish Maharaj is praying for someone who has actually offended him, who has actually caused so much trouble to him without any reason. There was not even a legitimate reason for going through some difficulty. So, generally in our lives, when we face distress, we see if we had committed a mistake and if we are enjoying or suffering the results of those mistakes, then we are somewhat okay. We consider, okay, I committed this mistake and I'm suffering this particular punishment. But when someone does something without any reason, at least what we cannot that we cannot see immediately, then our heart becomes very difficult to console. We feel, why am I, means I didn't do anything bad to this person. Why did he say this? Why did he do this to me? Because I did not do anything bad to this person, at least in this situation. Past is something nobody can see. So our heart becomes like unconsolable because we don't immediately see a connection. And here, Ambarish Maharaj can very well feel like that. Moreover, here is the same person coming and falling at his feet. He can even say tit for a tat, like, you did this to me and now you're suffering. I can't do anything. I'm not powerful than Sudarshan. If Sudarshan is chasing you, I cannot do anything. He could very easily say like that. However, he's very clearly praying for uh, Durvasa Muni. So that shows the character of a Vaishnava, that what makes him special is like is specifically his ability to actually forgive, not just forgive and forget, but also pray for the welfare of the person who committed offense towards him. So, to one thing is to consider whatever other person has done as offensive, but here a Vaishnava like Ambarish Maharaj is even beyond, like, considering something as offense and then forgiving is one thing. But Ambarish Maharaj is on such a high elevated status that he does not even consider Durvasa Muni whatever he did as offensive. He thinks, oh, why are you chasing Sudarshan? What did Durvasa Muni do? He didn't do anything. So that is the level of Ambarish Maharaj, that first of all, he did not even take an offense. What to speak of forgiving and forgetting? So forgiveness is considered as a hallmark of a Vaishnava. But here, Ambarish Maharaj is even crossing that hallmark and actually keeping a very high standard of not even taking offense. And okay, if somebody did something which was very little or very mild, we can say, oh, we don't consider that as very offensive. But here, what Ambarish Maharaj faced was really harsh. There was a demon about to kill him, and Durvasa Muni was angry. He spoke to him very angrily. And in spite of all that, Ambarish Maharaj did not consider that as did not consider at all as that as offensive. He just thought, oh, I deserve this. What Durvasa did was not offensive. He done, so that is a very high stage of uh, Ambarish Maharaj, and he's setting this example of who is a Vaishnava. In Bhagavad Gita also, Krishna speaks about who are his devotees. So in the chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, when Krishna, in the initially Arjuna is asking about who is better, impersonalist and personalist, and he says, yeah, personalists are better. And the symptom of that discussion is, who is a personalist that is being discussed there? Immediately deity worship comes into picture. So one who is worshipping the deity is considered as a Vaishnava. One who is worshipping the impersonal form is considered as an impersonalist, is not as dear as one who is worshipping the form of Krishna. So the difference between personalist and impersonalist in the beginning of the chapter is given through deity worship. And if you see the central section of the chapter 12 of Bhagavad Gita, immediately in the 8th verse, who is the Uttamadhikari? If we see, if we refer to those verses, if you have Bhagavad Gita, you can refer 12.8, where Krishna explains, if your mind is situated in me, he says, if your intelligence is situated in me, if your mind is situated in me, he tells to Arjuna, then you're always within me. Krishna considers this as the highest aspect of devotee, that initially he said between impersonalist personalist, one who's worshipping the deities are better, but when he comes to discussing about within devotees, he says, oh, one whose mind is always absorbed in me is a devotee. If you can, then practice regulative principles. In this way he gives gradation. And at the end, when he speaks about who is his devotee, who's dear to him, so he says, Adveshta Sarva Bhutana Maitra Karuna Evacha. So in those verses, starting from verses 13 to 20, he mentions various symptoms of a devotee. And if we carefully consider, he does not say one who chants 64 rounds is a dear devotee to me, one who is actually worshipping my deities very grandly, very sincerely. He is very dear to me. He does not mention any of the external activities of devotion in those verses at all. He just says one who is actually non-envious, one who is actually very compassionate to other living entities, one who is non-envious, one who is friendly to all living entities. These are the symptoms, he says. And such a devotee is dear to me, he says. So, which is in these three sections of the chapter, we can see three various aspects coming in. So, there is a Kanishta, Madhyam, and Uttam kind of a difference is there in various scriptures between among devotees. In Bhagavatam, there is a discussion about who is a Kanishta Adhikari, who is a Madhyama, and who is Uttama. And we have a similar discussion in Nectar of Devotion. We also have a similar discussion in Sri Chaitanya Charitamrita. So all these different scriptures give this discussion about who is a Uttam Adhikari, who is a intermediary devotee, Madhyam Adhikari, and who is a Kanishta, who is a neophyte devotee or a beginner in the process of devotional service. And there are various ways to classify, but one of the very important ways of classifying, which is pertaining to this discussion, to this section of Srimad Bhagavatam, is coming in Srimad Bhagavatam itself. When the Navayogendras meet King Nimi in Canto 11, they have a discussion about the differences, the gradations of devotees. So there, in that discussion, somebody is the symptoms of someone who's actually very, very sincerely worshipping the deities, but is very negligent to devotees, does not know how to behave with normal people, does not know how to behave with other devotees. Where he does not know, he has love for Krishna in the sense he has on reverence. He understands the Supreme Lord is the greatest of all. So I need to worship him. The world is a place of misery. So I need to get out of this world. So he has all these understandings. So he understands and accepts Krishna or the Supreme Lord as an object of worship very easily because he understands I'm low and the Supreme Lord is very high. So I need to worship him to get out of this world. The world is a place of misery. So it's very easy for him to actually accept the Supreme Lord, worshipping the Supreme Lord. So immediately for him, how easy way to worship the Supreme Lord is deity worship. So even in Ambarish Maharaj Pastime, we saw how he's engaged in deity worship. He engages all his senses in the worship of the deities. And here in this discussion of a Kanishta Adhikari, also we see the Kanishta Adhikari is very sincerely engaged in deity worship. But the problem is he does not know how to deal with other living beings. He does not know how to deal with other devotees. He does not know how to deal with other non-devotees and in general living beings. That is his problem. And Madhyam Adhikari is someone who knows how to deal with other living entities in this world very properly. That is, he Maitra, like there it is said that Madhyam Adhikari deals in this world in four ways, especially with other living entities in four ways. He gives his love to some people, he gives his friendship to some, he gives his help or compassion to some, and he keeps his distance from some. So the Bhagavatam explains who are these four categories that he deals like this. He gives his love to Krishna and his pure devotees. He gives respect to devotees, and he gives friendship to his equal devotees, and he gives compassion to those who are innocent. They are innocent people, they may not be devotees, but they are innocent. So he gives them his compassion and brings them or makes them aware of the supremacy of the Lord, and he actually guides them in the path of spirituality. And to those people who are envious, to those people who are very offensive, that speaking to them about Krishna might cause them to be more offensive towards Krishna, can actually invoke their enviousness, and thus can make them more violent towards devotees or towards the Supreme Lord, and can cause them further damage in their path. So he keeps distance from them. So this is the nature of a Madhyamadhikari. He knows how to deal with different personalities. Within devotees, he knows how to deal with different types. And outside devotees also he knows. And he knows how to deal with the Lord and how to deal with people who are envious. And the Uttam Adhikari is one who always sees Krishna wherever he sees. Is a very high category. That's why Krishna says in the 12.8 in the Bhagavad Gita chapter, one whose mind is always on me, intelligence always on me, he lives in me. So he's of a very high category. He does not understand what is the difference between material nature, spiritual nature. Everywhere he sees, he only sees spiritual nature. Everywhere he sees, he only sees his worshipable Lord Krishna. Stavara Jangama Deki Na Deki Tara Murti. So wherever he says, whether inanimate objects or animate objects, all that he can see is only the Supreme Lord. So he is on a very different level. He is exempted from everything. However, a Madhyamadikari, Prabhupada says in the Nectar of Instruction, he says, he requests all devotees who are on the platform of Kanishta to come to at least to the stage of Madhyama very quickly, because it lessens offenses. Because one may be worshipping deities, one may be engaging in various practices of devotional service, but more offenses he commits towards other devotees, especially, then his devotional progress will be lost. The Bhaktilata Beach that we have received, while living in the association of devotees, it might be very easy to take it for granted. But when we actually see outside, when we can understand how the quality of faith that a practicing devotee has is very special. It's not ordinary, because there are millions of people in this world, and not all of them have that same quality of faith on the Supreme Lord. There are many religious people, there are many semi-religious people, so like semi-spiritual people. They will accept superiority of the God or even Krishna in specific. However, if you tell them to take to the practices of devotional service with faith, to make the goal of life as Krishna, service to Krishna, that becomes very difficult for them. They think, oh, there are many things in life, this is one of that. So that is the quality of their faith. But we see anyone who has come in contact with a bona fide spiritual master by the grace of Srila Prabhupada, through his books and through his disciples and through his movement, we have received a quality of faith which is distinct from these kind of mixed faith. So anyone who's eager to embrace that level of faith is actually worshipable, is a devotee, and he needs to be respected because he is so special out of all millions and millions of other living beings in this world. So while dealing with, even with a Kanishta Adhikari, one needs to deal with respect. That's what Nectar of Instruction says. One needs to offer obeisances in mind. If a person is considered younger to us in spiritually, then we at least offer them mentally respect. So mental respect is a default in all levels. Mental respect is a default for every other person that we are going to deal in this world. However, different they may be, their views may be. So mental respect is always a minimum. And we see how it manifests with different devotees is mentioned in Nectar of Instruction. Okay, if somebody is initiated, somebody is like engaged in devotional service, somebody is advanced, how do we respect them differently? So however, the common denominator is there is an amount of respect internally, mentally. That respect is there for all kinds of devotees and others also. So that's what here Sudarshan is showing, that how, as a Vaishnava, Ambarish Maharaj is willing to not just forgive and forget, which is one level. He is not even taking whatever Durvasa Muni did as offensive. Rather, he is considering, he's praying for the welfare of Durvasa Muni. By that, actually setting a very high standard of what is the behavior of a devotee. And this is one aspect that Sudarshan is showing. And also, we see here in this in these pastimes how, sorry, I had made some notes, they're just missing. Like Sudarshan also shows this reality of showing this reality of who is a Vaishnava. That's what we discussed first. And Sudarshan is also showing the reality of what is the real shelter in this world. Because Durvasa Muni, who is such an elevated person who had the ability to go all over the three worlds, and he could even go to Vaikuntha and actually personally seek the shelter of Lord Vishnu. He seek shelter from various other higher beings in this world. Still, at last he had to come and fall at the feet of Ambarish Maharaj. So Sudarshan actually forced him to do that. So that is one of the realities that Sudarshan is showing. What is the real shelter in this world? Because shelter is something that all of us look for, knowingly, unknowingly, in a more expressed way or in a more subtler way. We all look for shelter in various things. Everybody in this world is looking for shelter. Shelter is also another, is a synonym of love. We are all looking for love, so we also look for the shelter where we can receive that love. So everything, like maybe we are looking, like addiction is a way of looking, taking shelter. That's the most perverted way we can see. But in this world, while living, while being infected with the modes of material nature, we all take shelter in various objects, in various things, in various people, uh, in a not so perfect way. We look for shelter, and we look for love, we look for pleasure, we look for happiness in those objects or people. And when it is not actually the real object of shelter, then we receive maybe some amount of shelter, but it is very temporary. It actually makes us unfulfilled, or it's insubstantial. However, here Sudarshan is showing what is the real shelter, which is the shelter of a pure devotee. There, we actually receive everything that is auspicious for us. So that real shelter is being revealed. So we can say there are like Sri Vaishnavas who speak about this concept also very elaborately in various scriptures, through various scriptures and examples, how shelter of Krishna or shelter of Vishnu is one thing. But what can be more higher than that is the shelter of a Vaishnava, because the how they describe or explain is, when a devotee actually suffers in, or any person in this world, when he is suffering the miseries of the material existence, and a devotee goes and then explains, oh, you're suffering in this material world, it's a place of misery, and so how to get out of this place of misery is to worship the supreme lord. So you can consider that this particular world is like a sea water. It's like experiencing sea water. So it's very easy for this person who is actually one whoever drinks salt water actually becomes more thirsty. That's the nature of salt water. It makes you more thirsty, and it will never satisfy you even more you drink. So similarly, the nature of material existence is we experience material happiness, but it's like salt water. It actually makes one more thirsty for more material happiness. So in that way, there is no satiation, however much material happiness we try to experience. So after drinking salt water for a long time, a person gets frustrated. Similarly, experiencing a lot of material happiness, which is coupled with distress. Material happiness does not come alone. It's a twin. You get the happiness, you also get misery, the distress. So the experiencing that happiness and distress together, material, a person becomes tired. And when a devotee comes and explains to him, here is the supreme lord, he is like the fresh water pond. This is a fresh water from a pond which immediately satisfies a person. Even if he drinks a little, his thirst is satisfied, he feels refreshed, he feels relieved, he feels very invigorated. So take this water. So when a devotee offers and a person actually tastes that, he realizes, oh my god, this shelter is so different. I want this. This is actually refreshing. This is actually very energizing. So he easily takes to the shelter of the Supreme Lord. The problem here is the Supreme Lord shelter, which seems like a freshwater pond, is actually comes with a lot of effort. Like the pond is seasonal. Seasonal in the sense, you have to fulfill actually a lot of rules and regulations to continue to receive that mercy of the Supreme Lord, in terms of you cannot offend the devotees, you cannot offend, you cannot do this aparad, you cannot do that aparad. There are a lot of ifs and buts to receive the shelter of the Supreme Lord. However, the shelter of a Vaishnav is unlike the shelter of a Lord, has no reservations. You see, who actually is more merciful, the Lord or the Vaishnav? You can easily say it's the Vaishnav who is more merciful. Srila Prabhupada came all the way, crossing 7 oceans, to actually to help those people whom are, even to some extent, to a large extent, is like difficult to directly receive the grace of the Lord for them. So through a Vaishnav, Vishnu's mercy comes. That is a Vaishnava. Vaishnava is the medium for carrying the mercy of Vishnu. So for a discussion point of, for emphasizing the importance of Vaishnavas, we are saying that their mercy is even more, is greater than the mercy of the Supreme Lord. So this discussion also happens in Madhurya Kadambini by Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur. He says, what is the cause of a person becoming a devotee or receiving devotional service in the heart? He says, if you say it is the mercy of the Lord, then he becomes partial. He can be blamed as, oh, this person is receiving the mercy of the Lord, this person not, so that's why he has become a devotee. So me being not a devotee is not my problem. It's the Lord's problem. But Krishna says, Samoham Sarva Bhuteshu, I'm equal to everyone. So that cannot be the reason. So there, Vishnu Chakravarti says, it is the mercy of a devotee that becomes the reason for the mercy of for receiving the devotional service in the heart of a conditioned soul. So then also we can blame actually, why is the devotee partial? He's not partial. However, he is also a human being. So he is limited by time, place, and circumstances. So if Srila Prabhupada goes to New York, he is not in London at the same time. So he begins his movement in New York. So then people in New York immediately become his first associates. So it's not that he is partial, but he has a limitation where he can go at a particular given point of time. So in that way, he is actually impartial, that in New York, he offered everybody. Anybody and everybody could have gone to 26 Second Avenue and received the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, listen to his talks. So his mercy is actually impartial in the sense, wherever he is, he offers it to anyone and everyone. So in that sense, Vishnu Chakravarti Thakur says how the shelter of Vaishnava is actually higher than a shelter of receiving Vishnu. It is said that when a devotee goes before the Lord, like if we are in Bhakti Center, we go and stand before Radha Mulidhar Gaur Chandra. So Mulidhar looks at us and says, who is this guy? Who is this person? I just don't want to look at this person. He's so hypocritical. He's so like duplicitous. I just don't want to look at this person's face. And he turns his face around and he sees Radharani. Radharani says, no, he's a poor guy. He's trying his best to be a devotee. So please give your mercy to him. Then he feels, okay, like I can't avoid it. So next time when we go and stand, he's not going to look towards Radharani. He knows what is going to come. So she's going to recommend us. So he looks towards the other direction. And the problem there is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu there. He is actually in the mood of Radharani. He's Krishna, but he's in the mood of Radharani. He is even more accessible than Radharani because Yadi Gaurna hoito, tabeki hoito. Means if not for Lord Gauranga, how would have Radhar Mahima Prema Rasa Sima? Means who would have known the limits of Radharani's love? Who would have known the glories of Radharani's love? So it is Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu who reveals the glories of Radharani. So he is even more merciful in the sense of, especially towards the fallen conditioned soul. So Mulidhar has no option in either direction. We will be recommended. So our real shelter is actually to, in one sense, to go towards them. So many times we think, oh, I love Krishna. It's me and Krishna. That's all. Actually, we don't have any qualification for that. It's just all we have is only the mercy of Guru and the other Vaishnavas. That is the only boat which can actually carry us across the material ocean, can carry us towards the feet of Lord Vishnu or Krishna. It is the mercy of Vaishnava. So that real shelter is also being shown by Sudarshan in this pastime. So it shows who is the real Vaishnava, and then the taking shelter of a real Vaishnava is the real shelter. These two aspects are shown by Sudarshan in this pastime. And also Srimad Bhagavatam has different topics. In Canto 2 of Srimad Bhagavatam, Shukadeva Goswami speaks to Parikshit Maharaj, says, Atra Sargo Visargasya Sthanam Pochanamutaya Manvantara Ishanukata Nirodho Mukti Rashtraya. So there are these 10 topics. And this Canto 9 predominantly speaks about Ishanukata. It also speaks about various other aspects. However, it predominantly speaks about Ishanukata. Ishanukata means Isha is the Supreme Lord. Anu is one who is follower of the Supreme Lord. Who are they? Devotees. Isha Anu is actually devotees, one who is a follower of the Supreme Lord. Kata, stories about the followers of the Supreme Lord. That is stories of devotees. So we all can attest to the fact that from the beginning of this canto, we have seen time and again like very uncomfortable stories. So this canto is actually story about devotees And from the beginning, you see each and every story is like really far out. It's not very common. Like one story about Sudyumna, he becomes male in 1 month for female, another month. There is a story of Sukanya or so many other personalities. And here again, we see Ambarish Maharaj. And then we will see more pastimes like Yayati and all these other personalities also. So there are two dynasties discussed in this particular canto. Sun dynasty, that is solar dynasty, and moon dynasty, lunar dynasty. Both are discussed. And Lord Ram appeared in solar dynasty, and Lord Krishna appeared in lunar dynasty, that is the sun or the moon dynasty. So ultimately, all these discussions lead towards Lord Ram and Lord Krishna. However, because devotees' lives cannot be diverged from the Supreme Lord. So ultimately, all these discussions lead us towards the Supreme Lord. However, if you just take a look at the lives of devotees, it seems like it's a mess. It's not that just because we become devotees, our lives are going to be very smooth without any problems. So Srimad Bhagavatam is teaching us, taking up story after story of various devotees and show how at one point their life is a mess actually. The life in the one thing which is common in this world, anyone who lives in this world is misery. Nobody can avoid it. So Srimad Bhagavatam is actually showing us just because we become devotees, don't expect that there will be no distress in our lives, there will be no miseries in our life, there will be no so-called injustices in our lives. So Srimad Bhagavatam is showing here, Sudarshan is showing that how the nature of the world is not going to change just because we are devotees. The miseries, the injustices, and the difficulties of this world remain the same. But how in all these stories, how people actually take shelter of all these various personalities in the stories in this canto 9, take shelter of the Supreme Lord and achieve perfection. Like we see especially the story of disciple of Vasishta Muni who actually killed a cow unknowingly, and he gets banished, but he ultimately actually he gets cursed, but he ultimately performs penances towards the Supreme Lord, pleases him, and then he goes back to God. And here, Ambarish Maharaj, he was just doing Ekadashi Vrata. He was not going to anyone's problems. He was just doing Ekadashi Vrata. Very sincerely, offering all his thoughts and prayer and deeds to the Supreme Lord. Kayena Vacha Manasena Vacha means everything he is offering to the Supreme Lord. And still, a problem comes his way in the form of Durvasa Muni. So it's just the nature of this world that whether we go and embrace the problems or not, the problems might come and embrace us in a very voluntary way. Still, what does Ambarish Maharaj do? That's what here is being taught by Srimad Bhagavatam. As aspiring devotees, everybody is going to face miseries, but how does various personalities who were devotees in the past have dealt with? There are hundreds and hundreds of devotees, but we can actually appreciate that Shukadeva Goswami or Srimad Bhagavatam is choosing really far out personalities or far out stories to present to us, because generally the Purana is something, Puranas are generally teaches like it is said that different scriptures teach like differently. Puranas actually teach by examples, teach like a friend by giving examples. So here in this Srimad Bhagavat Purana, we are being explained like a friend. Various examples are given to us by Srimad Bhagavatam from the life of various devotees, especially those circumstances which are really far out, which we will find it very difficult to deal with. And then it is showing like, okay, how are these personalities actually dealing with those circumstances? So that's what Srimad Bhagavatam is actually showing us through these pastimes of various personalities, especially in the canto 9. From the beginning we see how far out the situation circumstances are, and still these personalities take shelter of Krishna and actually cross over those difficulties. So these are the three things that I wanted to discuss: how Sudarshan shows who is a real Vaishnava, what is the quality of a real Vaishnava, and also Sudarshan shows what is the real shelter in this world. And uh, through this particular canto, Srimad Bhagavatam is teaching us how misery is common, is everybody is going to suffer from miseries, experience misery in this world, irrespective of whoever they are. and how are these devotees dealing with those unexpected circumstances in their lives. So these are the three things that I wanted to share. Thank you very much for this opportunity. If anybody would like to share anything, feel, please feel free to unmute yourselves. Adi Pushpa, Hi Krishna.
I feel very moved to hear how Ambarish Maharaj appealed to Krishna on behalf of Durvasa Muni. That somebody pray, and we are also called upon to pray for those who offend us. And we appeal to you to pray for us who have offended you. Please appeal to Krishna. It's so wonderful to hear that somebody will speak up for you, they care enough for you that they'll approach the Lord on our behalf because of our fallen condition, and they ask Krishna to forgive us, and then it says like Lord Ram killed Ravana. But Lord Chaitanya is so merciful. He not only wants to defeat the person who's involved in evil activity, but he wants that person to become a devotee. He wants Ravana to become a devotee, not just to destroy the demoniac mentality, like what Nityananda says, not to destroy the person, but to help us go forward closer to Krishna. It's so moving to hear that somebody prayed for somebody who's fallen. How wonderful is Krishna.
Means how wonderful is Krishna, one thing, but sometimes we can surely appreciate like how wonderful you are, because it's very easy to be because it's considered compassion is a hallmark of a Vaishnava, and we can always appreciate how much you show compassion, your embodiment of that you work so hard for actually benefiting so many people. It's sometimes very easy to benefit externally who are devotees, like very easy to help them, to consider them as our objects of our help, or like any kind of welfare work. But it's quite difficult to actually consider the whole world as a family and just extend our compassion. It takes really a much more high level of maturity and compassion. So thank you for being an embodiment of that and working so tirelessly to actually benefit so many people through Krishna Prasad. So it just takes so much dedication and compassion, and you've been a pillar of that, showing all of us, teaching how Srila Prabhupada's mode is actually one of compassion. That is his hallmark, actually. And we are all recipients of that compassion. That is our only qualification. So I extremely appreciate always your compassion towards everyone, and sometimes to people who are unlikely to come across the compassion of a devotee in general. So thank you very much for your example.
It's Srila Prabhupada's grace. Believe me, I was not. I was asked to take up this service, and I was like, "Well, I'm in college preaching. Why should the homeless? I don't want to." And my first impression, looking at my own consciousness when I was out there in the beginning, I was thinking, I have no love for these people. This is fishing in some deep waters, there are all kinds of, flowing levels. And I was thinking, okay, this is for my purification. My spiritual master is trying to help me to become a real devotee by, on his grace, on his instruction, for his pleasure, to take this up. And we have some very beautiful exchanges, with these people, expressing gratitude, giving us a hug, bringing us some extra plastic bags, just making some small. It's very moving to see the hearts open, and but it's the grace of the spiritual master. I don't have any compassion for anybody. Well, glory to Prabhupada.
Thank you so much for your presence and always inspiring everyone. I think I received a message from our girl. If she has a question, yes, you can ask. Adipushpa, you wanted to say something?
Well, we invite everyone.
Okay.
You know, when the spiritual master asks you to do something, you can't unring that bell. Oh, he told me I want you to double your service every year. Well, I don't say that. He wants me to take less each year and to give more each year. He wants me to take up the service that somebody else doesn't want to do. You know, and you can't like Prabhupada said, you can't unring that bell. I want you to go to the West. Wait a minute, the West. You know, the spiritual master tells you that. So we're ringing a bell to everyone there. If you want to come and help, come and help, come and see. Look at the Instagram Interfaith _NYC. At least look at the pictures and send them out to other people. Let them see, because people benefit just by seeing devotional service. Picture is worth more than what I can say. Interfaith _NYC on the Instagram. Take a look, and please come. You're all welcome. All glory to Prabhupada.
Thank you. You wanted to ask the question?
Yes.
Okay.
It's actually a repetition question. You were explaining maybe a comparison between
I couldn't. I think she even dropped out of the call. I think she has some internet problem. I hope it is from her side, not easy again.
my connection.
Yeah.
You were making a comparison between devotee of saying devotee is more compassion. So I'm if you can just repeat that, because I'm thinking that, you know, since it is Krishna who arranges how devotees link up with the master, you know, that can only happen by Krishna's arrangement. So I'm not, you know, the distinction is a little bit fuzzy for me.
Okay. I could not fully hear the question. If I can I summarize what I heard?
How
it was a little breaking. Okay, I'm sorry. I lost your
I was
summarize.
just
Sorry, Mother, here I'm not able to listen to.
Yeah, I'm trying to get you through my phone.
Okay.
But I don't know. The basic question was to
enter your participant.
wait. Let me.
You are in the meeting.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to shut you. My God, I'm so sorry for all this inconvenience. Yeah, I was just trying to get a better understanding between the distinction of the compassion of Krishna and the compassion of his pure devotees, because it is only through Krishna's arrangement that his pure devotees can distribute their compassion.
So you're asking like how can we distinguish that between those two?
Yeah, because we were saying that the devotees are more compassionate than Krishna himself.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, the devotees cannot distribute compassion unless Krishna arranges for that. So that makes it seem like it's actually Krishna's compassion.
Yeah. Ultimately, everything you can like, these are kind of discussions which can be twisted in different directions. It's also a kind of an emotion that we express through these kind of concepts. However, like as you said, Krishna is the source of everything, so everything can go back there. However, considering the personality, like devotee as an individual personality, even in this pastime of Ambarish Maharaj, if we see, Vishnu could not offer forgiveness to Durvasa, but ultimately he had to come to Ambarish Maharaj to beg for that forgiveness. So what Sudarshan is showing, what actually even Vishnu cannot do, a Vaishnava can do. So even Vishnu could not actually relieve Durvasa Muni from the fire of Sudarshan. However, Ambarish Maharaj will be successful. Now he is offering prayers after this. Because of his prayers, because of his appeal, Sudarshan will will spare Durvasa Muni. What Vishnu could not achieve, a Vaishnava achieves. So in that sense, we say that a Vaishnava's mercy, a compassion, is higher than the compassion of Vishnu in that sense.
So you can say that, I mean, either way is Krishna's mercy. It's just that instead of giving the mercy directly, he gives it indirectly through his devotees. It's not a matter of either or. It's direct or indirect, right?
Yes, that's why I clarified first. These discussions can be twisted in different ways, but what we are trying to express is an emotion. And also, ultimately, everything is coming from Krishna. Still, a devotee's mood is like here. This whole pastime is showing how a devotee is magnanimous, in spite of him being tormented by a person like Durvasa Muni without any reason. Still, in spite of suffering all this, Ambarish Maharaj sets a very high example of not just forgiveness. He waits for a year without eating or anything, and then he feels very honestly bad for Durvasa Muni to go. And he feels I am the reason for all this that Durvasa Muni is going through. So a high level of his character is being shown to us through this pastime. So in that sense, this whole endeavor is being taken by the Lord to glorify a devotee, how great he is. That's why Vishnu himself is saying, Aradhananam, Vishnu Aradhanam Param. But even worshipping of my devotees is much better than worshipping me. So Krishna is always eager to glorify his devotees. So anyone who becomes an object of mercy of a devotee becomes naturally an object of mercy of the Supreme Lord. An easiest way to actually become an object of mercy of the Supreme Lord is to become an object of mercy of a Vaishnava. There is no doubt about that. The source may all be Krishna, but still Krishna chooses to give a higher credit to a Vaishnava, a higher power to a Vaishnava by actually making them more glorious.
Thank you so much, Prabhu. Yeah.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna, everyone. Granthra Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Ananta Koti Vaishnava Vrinda ki jai, Vanshakati Kalivasha, Kripa Sindhu Devasha, Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnava Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai. Hare Krishna. Thank you everyone for joining. See you all tomorrow.